Everyone is talking about Bernard's impossible return. Everyone is trying to understand the algorithm, the hidden tunnels beneath Silo 18, and the growing mystery surrounding the Founders' long-term plan. Those are certainly the biggest moments from Episode 4, and they're the ones dominating every discussion online. But after watching the episode several times, I think the writers quietly placed something far more important right in front of us, and almost nobody noticed. It wasn't hidden inside a secret room or buried beneath another layer of Founder technology. It wasn't a classified document or a shocking revelation from Bernard. It was a quiet decision made by someone most viewers barely expected to remember by name. Amy. At first, that sounds ridiculous. She's a nurse, not the head of IT. She doesn't command the judiciary. She isn't leading Mechanical into another rebellion. And she certainly doesn't possess centuries of classified knowledge about the silos. She's just an ordinary woman doing an ordinary job inside an extraordinary world. But that's exactly why I think she's becoming one of the most important characters in the entire series. Because if Silo has taught us anything over the past 3 seasons, it's that history is rarely changed by the people everyone expects. The biggest revolutions never begin with the most powerful person in the room. They begin with one ordinary individual making one decision that completely changes the direction of everyone else's future. And Episode 4 quietly suggests that Amy may have just made that decision. Before we dive into today's theory, do me one quick favor. If the algorithm hasn't already classified this video as emotionally dangerous, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, it helps the channel more than you know, and unlike taking a job in IT, it won't require you to spend the next 352 years protecting somebody else's secrets. And make sure you watch this video from beginning to end because I don't think Episode 4 is simply introducing Amy as another supporting character. I think it's revealing why the Founders always feared something much more dangerous than rebellion. They feared ordinary people learning to trust each other again. One of the easiest mistakes to make while watching Silo is assuming that only the characters holding power can change the story. Bernard controls information. Juliette uncovers impossible truths. Lucas pieces together clues that could expose the entire system. Camille speaks directly with the algorithm. Those are the people we naturally pay attention to, because they're standing at the center of every major mystery. Amy isn't. She works quietly, stays out of political conflicts, and spends her time caring for people instead of leading them. In most stories, someone like Amy exists to support the real heroes, but Silo has never followed that kind of storytelling. Time and time again, the series has rewarded viewers who paid attention to the people standing just outside the spotlight. Juliette began as an engineer that nobody outside mechanical engineering cared about. Lucas was introduced as a quiet man staring at the stars while everyone else ignored him. Even Bernard looked like nothing more than an administrator before we discovered how deeply he was connected to the Founders' greatest secrets. The writers have built an entire series around one simple idea: never underestimate the quietest person in the room. That's exactly why Amy's decision in Episode 4 feels so significant. On the surface, she's simply helping Juliette when the situation demands compassion. It's a small moment, almost understated compared to everything else happening around it. There are no dramatic speeches, no emotional declaration that she's joining a rebellion, no grand promise to overthrow the system. She simply chooses to help another human being when every rule inside the silo tells her not to. Most viewers see that as kindness. I think it's something much bigger. It's the first crack in the Founders' greatest weapon. For 352 years, they've maintained control by convincing ordinary people that survival depends on obedience. Follow the rules, stay in your assigned role, don't ask dangerous questions, don't trust the wrong people. Fear keeps the machine running. Amy quietly rejects every part of that philosophy without ever giving a speech against it. She simply decides that another person's life matters more than the system demanding her obedience. In a society built entirely on fear, that's one of the most revolutionary acts imaginable. What's fascinating is that Amy gains absolutely nothing from making that choice. Think about every possible outcome from her perspective. She isn't promised a promotion. She isn't rewarded with influence or authority. She doesn't expect recognition. And she certainly isn't guaranteed survival if someone discovers what she's done. Every logical calculation tells her to protect herself instead. Keep your head down. Do your job. Let someone else take the risk. That's exactly how the Founders expected ordinary citizens to behave. After all, a society controlled by fear depends on people believing that self-preservation always comes first. But Amy proves something the founders may have underestimated from the very beginning. Human beings aren't driven only by fear. Sometimes they're driven by compassion. Sometimes they choose another person's future over their own safety. And that's the one variable no authoritarian system ever truly knows how to control. That idea becomes even more powerful when you compare Amy to Juliette. Juliette has always been different. She questions authority instinctively. She pushes against every rule because curiosity is simply part of who she is. Even before uncovering the founders' lies, Juliette never fit comfortably inside the world the silo expected her to accept. Amy is the exact opposite. She represents the ordinary citizen. The founders believed they understood perfectly. She works hard. She follows procedures. She isn't searching for hidden tunnels or secret files. She's simply trying to live an honest life inside the only world she's ever known. That's why her decision matters even more than Juliette's. When someone expected to challenge authority does exactly that, the system can explain it away as another troublemaker. But when someone who has faithfully followed the rules suddenly decides that compassion matters more than obedience, the entire foundation of the system begins to shake. Because if Amy can make that choice, how many others eventually will? But I think episode 4 is pointing us towards something even bigger than Amy simply helping Juliette. It's quietly asking us to reconsider how revolutions actually begin. For 3 seasons, we've naturally assumed that someone like Juliette would become the person who changes everything. She's fearless, relentlessly curious, and willing to risk her life to expose the truth. Every great story needs someone like Juliette because she's the one willing to kick open the first locked door. But history has never been changed by one extraordinary person acting alone. It changes when ordinary people decide they're no longer willing to protect a lie. That's the difference Amy brings to the story. Juliette can expose the truth, but Amy represents the people who have to decide whether that truth is worth believing. The founders never built the silo around stopping one rebel. They built it around convincing thousands of ordinary citizens that obedience was safer than trust. That's why Amy's quiet act of compassion may be far more dangerous than another act of rebellion. Rebellions create enemies. Compassion creates allies. And once people begin trusting each other instead of the system, every wall the founders spent 352 years building begins to crack from the inside. Hat also explains why I believe the algorithm may struggle to understand someone like Amy. If our earlier theories about the algorithm are correct, then its greatest strength is predicting human behavior. It calculates probabilities, measures risk, and constantly searches for the outcome most likely to preserve the stability of the silo. It understands fear because fear follows patterns. It understands ambition because ambition is predictable. It even understands rebellion because history has shown that revolutions usually follow recognizable cycles. But Amy doesn't act according to any of those patterns. She doesn't help Juliette because she expects power, recognition, or even survival. She helps because another person needs her. That's an entirely different motivation, and it may be one the algorithm has never learned to calculate. You can predict what someone will do to save themselves. It's much harder to predict what they'll do to save someone else. That's what makes empathy so dangerous inside a society designed around control. It's irrational. It's deeply human. And for a machine that reduces the future to numbers and probabilities, it may be the one variable that never fits neatly into the equation. There's another detail from episode 4 that I don't think is receiving enough attention. The writers never try to turn Amy into an action hero. She doesn't suddenly become fearless overnight. She doesn't deliver a speech about overthrowing the founders, and she doesn't emerge as the newest leader of the resistance. Instead, the episode allows her humanity to remain intact. She still looks uncertain. She still understands the danger surrounding every decision she makes. That's important, because courage in Silo has never meant the absence of fear. It has always meant choosing to do the right thing despite being afraid. Juliette has demonstrated that countless times. But Amy represents something even more relatable. She isn't naturally drawn toward conflict. She simply reaches a point where her conscience becomes stronger than her fear. That's the moment every authoritarian system dreads. Not when its enemies become louder, but when its ordinary citizens quietly stop cooperating. And that's why I don't believe Amy is simply another supporting character helping Juliette through one difficult episode. I think the writers are positioning her to become the emotional bridge between the truth and the people who have spent their entire lives avoiding it. Juliette understands machines. She understands hidden tunnels, broken systems, and impossible mysteries buried beneath the silo. Amy understands people. She understands their fears, their hopes, their grief, and the quiet strength that keeps ordinary lives moving forward every single day. Those two perspectives complement each other perfectly. Exposing the founders' lies will never be enough by itself. Someone has to convince frightened citizens that a different future is actually possible. Someone has to prove that trusting one another is safer than blindly trusting a system built on deception. Juliette can reveal the truth, but Amy may become the reason people choose to accept it. So perhaps we've all been looking in the wrong direction. We've spent weeks debating Bernard's return, the hidden tunnels, the algorithm's next move, and the secrets buried beneath Silo 18. Those mysteries absolutely matter, but Silo has always been a story about people more than machines. Every great change begins with one impossible choice made by someone who believes they're too ordinary to matter. Juliette made that choice mechanically. Lucas made it when he refused to stop asking questions about the stars. Now Amy has made her own choice, not by leading a rebellion, but by reminding us that kindness can be just as revolutionary as defiance. The founders believed they could preserve their world through fear, secrecy, and absolute control. But they underestimated one simple truth about human nature. You can erase memories, you can rewrite history, you can hide the truth for generations. But the moment ordinary people begin choosing each other over the system, the founders' greatest creation starts to unravel. And that's why I believe Amy was never just a nurse. She may become the quiet hero who helps bring down everything the founders spent 352 years trying to protect.